Another way of writing base 10 numbers will be when they have decimals attached to them. We all know what decimals are. So sometimes you get to notice that the number you are dealing with contains decimals. I'll be doing in today's class is to be writing base 10 decimal numbers or decimal fractions as you may call it in their expanded form. When I give you an example, it will be much clearer. So take a look at this example. Let's say we have the number 62.375. This number, we want to write it in expanded form. Okay, so take note, this number is a base 10 number, but it has a decimal point next to it. How would you do that? Something that can also help you is your place value chart, which you already know. Now, looking at this 62 tells us that we're dealing with a number in the tens place and another number in the ones place. I'm just going to represent it here. Tens place, ones place. But there's a decimal point which I can comfortably fill in here. Remember, in your place value chart, after the decimal point, the next thing that comes becomes your tenth. I can write it as T and TH. Then comes your hundredth, written as H and TH, and then comes your thousand, written as TH and TH expressed above it. So placing 62.375 in this chart will make it appear this way: 62.375. Now, how do we express this number in expanded form? One way to do that is by rewriting the digits that represent their places with their corresponding values. This is tens, so tens can be written as tens. Ones place can be written as ones. Point, this is tenth. Tenth is the same thing as 10 in the power of negative 1, or you can write it as 1 being divided by 10. Hundredth is the same thing as 100 in the power of negative 1, or you can express it as 100th fractionally. While the thousands place is the same thing as 1000 raised to the power negative 1, which you can also write as 1000 decimally, fractionally, like this. So having this knowledge will help you to be able to express the number you already have in expanded form. So how would you do that? Since we are dealing with base 10 numbers, one thing we can have in mind is knowing how to express the digits that we have right here. It's very important. Now notice 100 on its own can actually be written as 10 squared, isn't it? And 1000 can actually be written as 10 to the power of 3. But because they have negatives, it means that the powers will also be negative powers. This is what I mean. Bringing down to the next line, tens place is written as tens. Ones place is this point. Now take a look at this. This is 10 in the power of negative 1, which represents itself down here. 100 is represented as 10 squared. Remember that. 10 squared. But it already has a negative 1 because it's in the 100th place. That makes it negative 2 in the power. 1000 is 10 to the power of 3. You remember that? But because it already has negative 1, 3 changes to negative because of the place value it represents. So we have just ended up expressing our place value as numbers in powers of 10. Now take a look at the ones place. Because it's the digit 1, it simply means that it's 10 power without any significant number above it. And it can be written as 10 to the power of 0, while the tens place represents 10 to the power of 1. So we'll be working with this stage at the moment to show the expanded form of 62.375. And to do that, I am going to be multiplying each of the places that we have with the corresponding powers of 10 that we have down here. In that case, 6 multiplies 10 to the power of 1 and is written as 6 times 10 to the power of 1. 2 is in the ones place, and ones place represents 10 to the power of 0. So I'll be adding that. That 2 multiplies 10 to the power of 0. Add, this is 10 to the power of negative 1 to be multiplied by 3. So 3 multiplies 10 to the power of negative 1. Next thing to be added is 7 multiplying 10 to the power of negative 2. And finally, we have the number 5 multiplying 10 to the power of negative 3. This is one way of writing the expanded form of the number 62.375. One more thing you can do is to choose to express it in fraction form, that is on the right hand side here, which is going to be 6 times 10 to the power of 1, add 2 times 10 to the power of 0, add, instead of writing 3 times 10 to the power of negative 1, this will now change to 3 upon 10, that is 3/10. Add, this part will become 700th fractionally, and 5 times 10 to the power of negative 3 represents 5,000. 5,000. So this part, which is 6 times 10 to the power of 1 and 2 times 10 to the power of 0, they both remain the same, but the numbers coming after the decimal point will change. This is the second way of writing it. So I've just shown you way 1, way 2. There is one more way that we can show to use to represent 62.375 in expanded form, and that way is simply, instead of writing in powers of 10, we simplify the digits in powers of 10 and place it where they were. What it means is 6 times 10 raised to the power 1 is the same thing as 6 times 10. 6 times 10 is 60. Add 2 times 10 raised to the power 0. We already know that 10 raised to the power 0 is 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. Leave it there. Add, next one. Now this is 10 raised to the power negative 1, which is represented as 0.1 because it comes as the first digit immediately after the decimal point. Therefore, 3 times 0.1 leaves us with the same thing as 0.3. Add, next one is 7 times 0.01 because it comes in the second place after the decimal point. It represents 0.01. When multiplied by 7 leaves us with 0.07. And finally, 5,000 will be 0.005. This represents exactly the same thing we have shown in the first and the second one, but in yet a different method. These are the 3 different ways you can represent numbers in expanded form when they involve decimals, so long they are base 10 numbers. When we deal with other bases, I'll show you how to do that also.